The screaming didn't start at midnight. That was the first thing I realized later. When I tried to piece together what went wrong that New Year's Eve, everyone always says the horror began when the clock struck 12.
Wow, look at that
When the
crowd.
fireworks
Cheers to that.
exploded.
This is amazing. Us
and
and
the
them.
year
Cheers.
changed.
Happy
But
New
that's
Year.
a lie we tell ourselves because it feels neat. It feels safe. The truth is, the screaming began before the countdown even started. It began quietly, like a breath taken by something that had been waiting a very long time to exhale. At 11:42 p.m., my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Don't make a wish tonight." I laughed it off. I was 26, slightly drunk, standing on the balcony of my flat in Leeds, watching the city glow with anticipation. The air smelled of fireworks and cold metal, that sharp winter scent that creeps into your lungs and makes you feel awake. New Year's Eve always felt like that to me, electric, unreal, like the city was holding its breath. I assumed the message was a prank, maybe from one of my mates already inside, trying to mess with me. I typed back, "Who is this?" No reply. I shrugged and went back inside where music thumped through the walls and laughter spilled over cheap Prosecco. My friends were already shouting about resolutions. They wouldn't keep clinking glasses, hugging too hard. The TV was on mute in the corner, showing crowds in London bundled up near the Thames, waiting for Big Ben. Everything felt normal, too normal, too normal. At 11:48 p.m., the power flickered. Just for a second, the lights dimmed, then came back brighter than before. A few people cheered, thinking it was part of the atmosphere. Someone joked about the apocalypse arriving early. I remember feeling a strange tightening in my chest, like my body had noticed something my brain hadn't caught up with yet. My phone buzzed again. Same number. I stared at the screen, the words sitting there in stark white against the dark. A chill crawled up my spine that had nothing to do with the winter air. I locked my phone and slipped it into my pocket, telling myself I was being ridiculous. It was New Year's Eve. People sent weird messages. People drank too much. People messed around. At 11:52 p.m., my neighbor downstairs started screaming. At first, we thought it was excitement. Someone yelled, "Here we go," and turned the music up. But the screaming didn't stop. It didn't rise and fall like laughter or drunken shouting. It stayed at the same pitch, raw and tearing, like something being pulled apart. The music cut out abruptly. Everyone froze. We stood there in a sudden, heavy silence, broken only by that sound coming up through the floor. A woman's voice, cracking, begging. Words I couldn't make out. Then, a thud. Then nothing. Someone whispered, Is that Sarah?" Another voice said, "She lives alone." At 11:54 p.m., the TV turned itself back on. The volume jumped to maximum. The presenter's smile looked wrong somehow, stretched too wide, eyes too bright. He was talking about new beginnings, about leaving the past behind. His mouth moved slightly out of sync with his words. No one laughed now. No one spoke. We just watched, trapped by a growing sense that something fundamental had slipped out of place. My phone buzzed again. It comes through doors people open for IT. I felt sick. At 11:56 p.m., someone knocked on the flat door. 3 sharp knocks, calm, polite. We all turned to look at it. "Don't open it," I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Everyone stared at me, confused, irritated. One of my friends, Dan, rolled his eyes. "It's probably Sarah," he said. "She might be hurt." The knocking came again. 3 knocks, slightly louder. "Help me," a woman's voice called from the other side. It sounded like Sarah, exactly like her. Same accent, same tone. But there was something off about it, something flat and hollow, like the sound was being played through a speaker buried deep underground. Dan reached for the handle. At 11:58 p.m., the screaming started again, inside the walls. It didn't come from one direction. It came from everywhere at once. From the ceiling, from the floor, from behind the TV. Voices layered over each other, dozens of them, all screaming in unison, as if the building itself had found a mouth. Dan froze, his hand inches from the door. The knocking stopped. Silence crashed down so suddenly my ears rang. Then my phone buzzed one last time before midnight. If you count it in, you invite it in. On the TV, the presenter began the countdown. This muscle memory tradition burned into us since childhood, but my voice was swallowed by theirs. 8. The lights flickered again, longer this time. The walls seemed to ripple like heat haze on asphalt. 7. I ran to the TV and tried to turn it off. The button wouldn't respond. The remote fell apart in my hands, plastic cracking like dry bone. Behind the door, something began to breathe. Slow, wet, patient. A 5. I smelled rot, thick and sweet, flooding the room. 4. The door handle started to turn, millimeter by millimeter, even though no one was touching it. 3. I covered my ears, squeezed my eyes shut, but I could still hear it, feel it vibrating through my skull. 2. The screaming returned, louder than ever, voices overlapping until they became one sound. One hunger. The fireworks exploded outside. At midnight, the door opened. What stood there was not Sarah. It was wearing her shape like a coat that didn't quite fit. Its limbs bent at the wrong angles. Its face was a perfect copy until you looked at the eyes. Too many reflections, like mirrors stacked inside each other. Its mouth stretched open, impossibly wide, and from it came every scream we had heard that night all at once. "Happy New Year," it said in Sarah's voice. Then it stepped inside. I don't know how long the screaming lasted after that. Time lost its meaning. I remember flashes. Dan being lifted off the ground, his body folding like paper. Someone trying to run, only to find the wall stretching, the corridor looping back on itself. I remember the sound of fireworks blending with bones breaking. The city celebrating while our world ended in a small Leeds flat. I survived because I didn't make a wish. That's what I tell myself anyway. When the police found me the next morning, I was alone, sitting in the middle of the room, covered in blood that wasn't all mine. There were no bodies, no signs of a struggle. Just me, shaking, repeating the same sentence over and over again. They counted it in. They said it was shock, trauma, alcohol. They said New Year's Eve does strange things to people, but every year since then, just before midnight, my phone buzzes. It's almost time again. And somewhere behind a door someone is about to open, something is listening, waiting for the countdown to reach 0.